very good evening to everyone. And from Career Beacon, we are committed to bring the content that is rich for the students, for the youth, for pursuing their careers further. And in this regard, today we have come up with a very interesting topic on SAT preparation. And as you know, SAT is scheduled on 7th May. Last time preparation tips and tricks to score well, 1580 plus and even 600. Why not? It is possible. So for that, we have an expert with us, Anusheel Khalsa. She is the founder of Global Prep. She has over 27 years of experience in teaching. Education-wise, she's an electronics engineer, and she's a freelance trainer in the various organizations. She's giving instructions. She's also certified for verbal and maths for various study abroad programs. As a dual certified trainer, she's helping the students across Pan-India with regard to SAT, ACT, GMAT, GRE, and help so many students to achieve the desired goals and reach their dream universities. So here we have with us Anusheel Khalsa. So welcome, Anusheel. Welcome to Career Beacon, and it's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you so much, Kavita ji, for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this platform, and also to help the students, with the queries that they have regarding the SAT. So we know that SAT is approaching. It's the next weekend only. We have the SAT, May SAT. So at this point of time, there were many students and the parents coming up with their doubts and all. And thank you so much that you gave me the opportunity to handle all those queries. And I hope that towards the end of the session, we'll be able to help them out a lot.
Surely, with you, the kind of expertise you're bringing with us, the years of experience, over 2 decades of experience. Yeah. So moving forward, I will request you first quickly. We all know SAT is normally students for going abroad, especially to US, they do it. So if you can brief about the SAT.
Okay, so I'll just share the screen. So is the screen visible, Kavita ji?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, so SAT is basically a standardized test which is administered by the college board. The scores of SAT, they are widely used in college admissions in United States and few other countries like top-notch universities in UK, Canada, and Singapore. They are asking for your SAT scores, right? The 2 top universities in Singapore, that is NUS and NTU, they want your SAT score if you want to have an admission, if you want to get admitted to that university, right? And you'll be surprised to know that around 47 universities in India, they are also accepting your SAT scores for their various degree programs. And a few universities are like Ashoka University, Shiv Nadi University, and even Vellore Institute of Technology is also using SAT score for certain courses. Yeah, and SAT is a test which contains 4 sections basically. The first section is the reading section, and the reading section comprises of 52 questions, and you have to answer these questions in 65 minutes, right? And after this section, there is a break for 10 minutes. So there is a break for 10 minutes here. And we recommend the students to use these breaks wisely, right? So even the students, when the students are preparing for their test, they must be taking their full length test, right? So when they're writing their full length test, we recommend that they must spend 10 minutes. They should, maybe they have just gone out of the room and they can use washroom, wash their face, and then come back, and so that they're ready for the next section, right? And then the second section is the writing and language section, where a student has to answer 44 questions in 35 minutes, right? And after that, there's no break between the third section, second and the third section. The third section is the math section, where the calculator is not allowed to answer the questions, right? And this section contains 20 questions. And out of these 20 questions, 15 questions are MCQs and 5 questions are grid-in questions. Like for grid-in questions, no answer choice is given. Students have to solve the question and come up with their own answer, and they have to fill their answers in the grids provided in the answer sheet, right? And after the third section, there is another break for 5 minutes. And then we have the last section of the test, which is math section with calculator. So in this section, calculator is allowed, and students have to answer 38 questions in 55 minutes, right? So one thing that a student must know is that the time mentioned here, this includes the time to fill the bubbles as well, right? So it's not that students can answer 44 questions in 35 minutes. They have to answer 44 questions in 35 minutes. And at the same time, they must be able to like fill their answer sheet, like the bubbles in the answer sheet, in these 35 minutes only. They don't get extra time to fill the bubbles. Yeah, so this is one thing that a student has to take care. So this makes the total time with breaks as 195 minutes.
Thank you, Anusheel, for sharing briefly the structure of the SAT paper. And let me tell you, even the Azim Premji University, Symbiosis International, BML Munjal,
yes.
Bennett University,
yeah.
these top private universities, deemed universities are also accepting SAT.
Yeah.
So even if you have given and it will not go in vain, you can use it even in India. Yes. And it has even if you are 1580 plus, they give you the scholarship also.
Yes. Yes. So depending on the score and your other academics and curricular activities, universities decide on the scholarships. Yeah.
So moving forward, we have received few questions.
Yes, please.
Ask the students to. There's some very common question even the parents have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is the best strategy for the SAT?
Kavita ji, I personally feel that the best strategy for start preparing the SAT is to start as early as possible, right? Another thing to keep in mind is that students, while they are preparing for their SAT, they should not neglect SAT. So SAT is not something they are doing being forced by someone. So they are doing for their own betterment. So they must have a proper plan when they're preparing for SAT, right? And another thing that I would recommend is to read a lot. Fine. So as we'll discuss in a while that in the reading section, there are 5 passages that students answer. So out of those 5 passages, 4 are non-fictional passages and 1 passage is a literature passage. So I recommend that students must read a lot of non-fictional content.
I think the key mantra is you have to be a good reader. So when you read something, you pick up vocabulary, you pick up a lot of things.
Yes, not just vocabulary. So one thing I would suggest students is to not read the passages just for the sake of reading the passage. So they must understand that how an author is putting the information in those lines, right, in those sentences, and how the sentences can be linked together so that the student can infer correctly in the best possible way what the author is trying to convey through those lines. So that is something to be kept in mind when a student is preparing for SAT, especially the reading part. Yeah.
What do you think is the best way to prepare for the SAT?
The best way to prepare for SAT is to start with a mock test, right? A lot of mock tests are available. You search the internet, a lot of tests are there, a lot of books are there that contain tests, right? So the first point is to take a mock test, right? So from the mock test, we'll get the base score of the student. The student will get to know where he or she actually stands, right? So some students feel that they are quite comfortable with math, they are very comfortable in spoken English, so they will do well in the SAT exam as well. But that's not the case, because SAT English is very different from the way we speak in our day-to-day life, right? So this is a formal test. So student must prepare for the exam, right? So, and the first step is to take a mock test without any preparation so that he knows where he stands. And then based on the base score, he needs to plan a strategy. He needs to plan the preparation, right? How he or she should go about the preparation. Fine. And once the student analyze the performance, a student needs to identify the stronger areas and the weaker areas. Like mostly like Indian students are comfortable with maths, but they're not comfortable with the English part, right? So generally a student scores like much higher in maths in the mock test as compared to the verbal part. Fine. So they have to decide that if this is the scenario, that simply means they have to spend more time in the English section, the reading section and the writing and language section. But at the same time, he cannot skip preparing for math as well, right? So a student has to have a balanced preparation for both the subjects. So that is something a student must keep in mind, right?
That's why we have, the kind of expertise, 2 decades of experience takes. The mock test. Normally, students would like to study and then go for the mock test. So
yeah, this is what happens. Like there are many students they are reluctant to write for sit for the test because they'll say okay, they don't have time. They can't sit for 3 hours, right? And also if we ask them to write the test, they'll try to skip the breaks, right? So they say that they have something to do, something else to do. They have their homework to be completed. They have some project to be submitted, or they have their exam in the next week. So they have all the reasons for not writing the test. And then they'll say, okay, we'll have a few classes and then we'll go for the test, right? But that is not a good idea because if you attend classes, you acquire some knowledge. Then we cannot say that the score that you will get after 2 weeks of preparation, for example, we cannot take those scores as the base scores. Then we say that those scores are, the added scores. So whatever you have acquired, whatever knowledge you have acquired in these 2 weeks, so you are applying that knowledge as well in the test. So a student must start with the diagnostic test.
wonderful tip that, so start with a mock test so that you get a feel of the exam. You
Yes.
get to know, where you stand, where more efforts need to be put, the
Exactly.
challenges which are there. And
Yes.
then accordingly, you give your, structured way studying.
Yes, because that way student will be able to plan properly. So he or she will know that how much hours he or she needs to put in maths and how many hours a student needs to put in the English part.
A lot of students are already, preparing for some competitive exam, maybe JEE, NEET, or some other exam, and they like to even apply for, SAT. Yeah. So, what would you say to them? How they can prepare for SAT at home?
See, there are various ways a student can prepare on their own. Like a lot of, as we discussed, that a lot of stuff is available on the net, right? A lot of books are available. So students can use that material. Also, I would recommend that a student should register with Khan Academy. There they have, like, once they register, they will have the access to free mocks as well as the topic wise content. So if a student feels that he or she needs to practice on a particular topic, say parabolas in math, or maybe say vocab in context questions in the reading part, so they can only click on that link and they can practice only those kind of questions. So that is one platform that is really helpful for the students. Yeah. And if a student is planning to refer to the material that is available on the market, so there are again multiple materials available, material from multiple publishers. Like you'll find that for example, say Manhattan material is there, Kaplan material is there, you'll also find Princeton review material, right? So my recommendation would be to stick to one material because the strategies might be different given in multiple materials. So if a student goes for multiple material, then at the end, they are confused at which strategy to follow, right?
That's a wonderful
all the kind
tip.
of, yeah. So all
even
the strategies
I give to my students,
yeah,
if they're preparing for board exam, not to have multiple reference to a book, have one reference book, not to get confused with the kind of questions which are there.
Yeah. So
Follow
for
one
the understanding part,
and well for that.
they should stick to one material. But when it comes to practice, then they can practice from multiple sources. So they can practice Manhattan material. They can take like mock tests from Manhattan, from Kaplan, from Princeton, from College Board, right? So 10 mock tests are available on the net, free of cost. So student has to just download the test, take the printout, because as of now, the test is a paper pencil test. So we don't recommend the student to sit on the computer and take the test, because that way student won't be able to apply the strategies, that are taught in the class. So it's better that the student take the printout and then write the mock test, right? And another way to prepare or at home is like through online classes. These days, like everything has become online, right? Everything is there online. So even the classes are conducted online. So one thing that is important is like if a student wants to prepare on his own, then he has to ensure that he is studying in a structured manner, right? In a proper way. It should not happen that he has decided to say spend 1 hour today on SAT, but then tomorrow is some project submission, or today is like his best friend's birthday party, so he's compromising on that time. It should not happen. So if a student feels that he might get distracted from like due to various reasons, and he won't be able to spend the time that he has kept on like for SAT on SAT preparation, then it is recommended that he should take the help of some teacher. So maybe through online classes, or maybe if he wants, like he can join some institute where he can, where there is someone to remind him that, yes, you have to do SAT. This is your SAT time. This is what needs to be done before tomorrow and all that.
I agree with you, Anushee. Self-learning, not every student can do.
Yes.
Self-learning needs consistency and
Yes.
planning your entire course. So you
Yeah.
have to be consistent whenever you're preparing for it. If you get distracted, you need somebody to keep you on track. Then
Exactly.
you can go for online classes.
Yeah,
or you
and
can
there is another benefit of studying from some teacher, because whenever you have a doubt, there is someone to solve your doubts. It's
Yes.
not that you have not understood something and then you got stuck, and then because you don't want to move ahead without getting this the doubt solved, and there's no one to solve the doubt, and then you are there only. So you're doing other things apart from studying for your SAT. So this should not happen.
Okay, a lot of students have just started with the SAT examination. The moment the board exams are coming and college admission is coming, they start 2 months before the SAT. So one thing that comes in mind is 2 months is enough to prepare for SAT.
Yes, if you are planning to have a focused studies for SAT, it is sufficient. Fine. It's not that you have to cover only the content, you only have to cover the syllabus. It's not like that. You have to learn the content that is tested on SAT. At the same time, you have to understand how it has to be applied on the SAT style questions, and then you need to master them as well, right? And it is always advised to write a number of mock tests, full length tests. It's not just a sectional test, but full length tests before a student sits for the actual SAT exam.
So we are done with the questions. Quickly moving to based on each section, your experts strategies and tricks which you bring with the decade of experience, with 27 years of experience. So you can quickly give to our students who are preparing for SAT. So the time is a limiting factor. So we will be having a 3 session for each section. So today, I'll request Anushee, if you can, which section you'll be covering today, and we will be having, a continuous session that is on 30th, and then on the 1st May, same time, same place, YouTube. Connect with us, and if you have any question, just pop out to us, and our expert will answer to you. To you all, Anushee, if you can take us to the strategies and tricks to score high on which section you'll be covering today?
Because reading is the first section in the test. So let's start with the reading. So let's go in the order of the sections that appear on the SAT exam. So today we'll start with the reading section. right? So I'll just share the screen. Thank you. Okay, so the reading section comprises of 52 questions, and you have 65 minutes to answer and fill the bubbles in the bubble sheet, right? And there are total 5 passages, and each passage will contain 10 to 11 questions, right? And out of these 5 passages, like one passage is a literature passage, one passage is each from history and social studies, and there are 2 science passages. Fine. So there are total 5 passages. And out of these 5 passages, one passage will be a dual passage. Dual passage means that passage will contain 2 shorter passages. And first few questions will relate to the first passage. Next few questions will relate to the second passage. And the last few questions will want you to combine the information from both the passages, right? And the two of the passages will contain charts or graphs. So you may have a scientific passage that contains some information in the form of chart or a graph, or you may have a social science passage that provides you with some data that can be related to the information in the passage, right? Now, it is important to understand what type of questions are there in the SAT reading section, right? So we can categorize these questions broadly into three parts. One is the general questions. So the general questions relate to the passage as a whole. That means you need to have the information, the understanding of the entire passage to answer this question. Then we have specific questions. Specific questions will ask about something specific in the passage, right? And these questions are arranged in chronological order. So chronological order means the information. So these questions are presented to you in the order of information available in the passage, right? And then we have another type of question, which is paired questions. In paired sets, the second question asks you to match lines from the text to the answer to the first question in the paired set, right? And each passage on SAT will contain 2 sets of paired questions, and one paired question is a general paired question that again relates to the whole passage, and one question will relate to something specific, right? And another thing to understand is the question task. This is very important to understand, because if you are not able to understand the task assigned to you in that question, you may fall for the trap answer, right? So the first question task is a what question. So what question means the question is asking about what the author says about something, right? So, or what the passage says about something, right? To answer these questions, you have to look for specific information, right? And generally, the answers will be the details that are directly mentioned in the passage, right? Another question task is the why question. Why question focuses on why the author said something in the passage, right? And as you know, the answer to why questions is always a reason. So you have to look for the reasons to answer these questions, right? And then we have the third type of question, which want you to make connections between multiple informations given in the passage, right? So these questions focus on combining information from multiple sources. So as we discussed that we have a dual passage in which you will find the last few questions wanting you to combine information from both the passages. And then if you have a chart or a graph, then the question, you may have a question that want you to combine information from chart or graph along with the information in the passage, right? So make sure that you are reading the piece of information, whatever is given to you, carefully to answer the questions, right? Then we have another type of question that you will find in every passage, which is vocab in context question. So as the name suggests, you have to pick the answer which will give you the meaning of the word as it is used in the context of the passage, right? So these questions want you to focus on the meaning of the word based on the context, based on the information given in the passage, right? So now we'll look at a few question types and we'll try to understand how you should go about answering the questions, right? So here we have the first question. So the question asks, lines 39 to 44 suggest that laws are often created. Now, the questions on SAT are open, the statement style questions, where half of the statement is given in the question stem and the half of the statement will be given in the answer choice, right? So you have to pick the answer choice which completes that statement correctly, right? So the first thing that you need to do is to understand the question, understand what exactly the question is asking you to do, right? So here there are certain clues, like if you have like if the question statement ends with in order to or to something, then that indicates it's a why question, right? But we don't have any such clue in this question. So in case you are confused that whether this question is a what question or a why question, you can start, responding the question as if you're answering this question in your school English class. So to answer this question, how will you start your response? You will probably say, the laws are often created because, or the laws are often created in order to, or the laws are often created to something, something, right? So that simply means the question is a why question. So the question is actually asking you, why are laws created? Now, once you have understood the question, the next step is to read the passage, right? So again, you can see that I have not given any answer choices here, because one thing that you have to keep in mind is once you understand the question and before you read the passage text, you should not read the answer choices, right? Because that way you may pick the wrong answer choices, because if you read the answer choices beforehand, your reading, when you read the passage, your reading could be a biased reading, right? Then you will look for, okay, I read this word in the answer choice, also that could be the answer, or I read this word in the answer choice, that kind of a thing. So you should not look at the answer choices before you read the passage text, right? Now, this is the passage, right? So one thing you have to keep in mind is when you read the passage text, you should read with the focus of the question, right? So the question was, why are laws created? So you need to pick a sentence from the passage text that gives you the reason for the creation of laws, right? So if we read the text, so here the text says, judging from the kind of men sent to the state legislatures and to Congress, the fact that certain things are forbidden does not mean that these things are necessarily evil, but rather that politicians believe there is a demand for such legislation from the class of society that is most powerful in political action. No one who examines the question can be satisfied that a thing is intrinsically wrong because it is forbidden by a legislative body. Now, you can see, now one more point to add here, the line reference given was 39 to 44. So whenever you have a specific question, that means you have line reference in the question statement, then you must read few lines extra, right? Now, here a new paragraph starts at line 39. So we are not reading before line 39. And the paragraph ends at line 47. So we are reading this text, right? Now, the sentence that gives you the reason that why laws are created is, so can someone help me with the answer? So is it the first sentence or the second sentence? There are only two sentences here. So Kavita ji, you can help me with the. Okay, fine. So in this text, right, this statement that politicians believe there is a demand for such legislation from the class of society that is most powerful in political action, right? So this sentence gives us the reason for the creation of law. Right now, once you have identified the answer from the passage text, you have to use that text to identify the correct answer, right? Now, if we look at the answer choices, so option A says to prevent wicked actions. So the line that suggests the reason for creation of laws does not indicate does not talk about any sort of wicked actions, right? So to prevent wicked actions, you can say that yes, laws are created so that nothing bad happens, right? So if you pick this option, then probably you are adding your own assumption, right? So this information is not given in the passage. So this answer choice is not supported by the passage text. So this is a valid reason to eliminate the answer. Now, once you have eliminated option A, let's work option B. It says to satisfy the demands of crime victims. So yes, the text was talking about satisfying the demands of someone, but was the passage text really talking about the crime victims? No. So these kind of answer choices are very common, and these these act as big traps for the students, right? So because students read the answer choices partially, and if they find, okay, first half of the answer choice is correct, they won't read the entire answer choice, right? So this answer choice is partially correct. And remember, partial answers will never give you the credit, right? So you need to eliminate the partial answers as well, right? Option C says by men who are morally weak. Any clue here that indicates we are talking about men who are morally weak? So we know that there is a demand from the class of society that is most powerful in political action, right? So this kind of answer choice is using deceptive language. So I can eliminate this option being deceptive, right? And the last option which is left has to be the correct answer, because I have valid reasons to eliminate other three answer choices, right? So whenever we are working the answer choices, we'll rely heavily on process of elimination, fine? And option D here says to appease prevailing political powers. So appease means to please. Prevailing political powers can be related to this phrase that demand for such legislation from most powerful in the society, class of society that is most powerful in political action, right? So this answer has to be the correct answer. So one thing to note here is that the correct answers will always use different language from like a language which is different from the passage text, right? So we say such answer choices are paraphrases. So correct answer choices will always be given in the paraphrase form, right? So you have to make sure that you are not picking the answer choices just because you have some words that you have read in the passage that are also in the answer choices, right? So one thing that you have to keep in mind about the reading section is that you don't have to match words, you have to match ideas. So this is something which is really important. If you try to match words, then you will fall for the trap answer, right? So these are a few of the learnings derived from the question that we have just taken here. So you have to read the question carefully and understand the question task. And the next thing that you have to do is that you have to hide the answer choices. You may have to, control this temptation to look at the answer choices, right? And once you have understood the question, move to the passage, work the passage. And once you know that which sentence provides the answer to the question asked, then you have to use process of elimination and get to the correct answer, right? And you have to make sure that you have to analyze each answer choice. So even if you find that option A seems to be correct, still you must check B, C, D and make sure that these are wrong answer choices, right? And eliminate answer choices that do not match your prediction and beware of the trap answers. So the kind of trap answers are the kind of answers that we have discussed here. So any answer choice which is not supported by the passage text just cannot be the correct answer, right? And partial answers can never be the correct answers, and you don't have to pick the answer choices with literal meaning, right? There are other characteristics also for the trap answers, but when we'll encounter such answers, we'll discuss with the questions, right? Now, this is the example of another question, like very common question as we discussed. So here the question asks, as used in line 16, kicks most nearly means. So most nearly means is a clue that the question is a vocab in context question. So vocab in context question means the question is asking, what is the meaning of the word kicks as it is used in the passage text, right? And the question will tell you where you can find the word. So the word kicks is available in line 16, right? So this is the word So when you have vocab in context questions, so what you need to do is you need to treat the word as a blank, right? So that you can decide what word can replace this word in the sentence, right? So you should read the sentence. If it makes sense, great. Otherwise, you should read one sentence before and one sentence ahead so that you know in what context the word was used in the passage, right? So if we read this sentence, so sentence says, he did not demur even when asked to fix watches, though that enterprise did spectacularly badly, and in fact earned him more dash than kudos, for no watch he took apart ever kept time again. Now, the clue in this sentence is you have to replace a word with more something than kudos. Now, kudos is a positive word. In case you don't know the meaning of the word, kudos is a positive word. When someone does something good, we say, okay, kudos to you, right? So if I'm saying more something than something positive, so that means I need a word that is negative here. So, and if you know the meaning of the kudos, so kudos means appreciation. So in the blank, you need some word which is opposite in the meaning of the appreciation, right? So what do you think? Thrill, does this match? Is this opposite to that of appreciation? So this is no. Complaints, yes, we can keep this for a while. Jolts, so jolts means jerks. That doesn't fit in here in the context. So this is out. Interests, again, does not fit in context. So for this question, the correct answer is complaints. So you can see even for such a simple question, you will always have a clue. So the clues will always be there in the passage text. So you don't have to add any information from your side to pick the answer, right? Any questions to anyone? Okay, no questions. So let's move to the next example. Sorry, before that, a few learnings derived from this question. So when you are working vocab and context questions, you have to make sure that these questions want you to establish the meaning of the word based on the context. So you are picking the word that fits in the context of the passage, right? And generally, the informal answer choices are wrong answer choices. So you have to pick words that are formal, right? Because slang language is not used generally in the SAT passages, right? Okay. Now we'll move to the next example. Now third example, so I've decided to choose a paired set because this is where students generally, like go wrong, right? Now, in the paired set, as you can see, the first question in the paired set will contain a proper question with the answer choices, right? And the next question, the second question in the paired set, will always ask which of the following line references provides the answer to the previous question. And in the answer choices for the second question, you have the line references, right? So these questions are also called best evidence answer questions. Right. Now, one thing that you have to note here is, again, there are multiple ways you can handle these questions as well. But the most important part is you read the question carefully, right? So the first question in the question set, you must read that carefully. And then we'll use the line references, the text in these lines mentioned in the answer choices. And then we'll decide whether these lines help you answer the question or not, right? Okay, so the question here is asking, the passage most strongly suggests that Chinese climbing mice are most remarkable for which of the following characteristics? So the question is about Chinese climbing mice. That is one thing that you have to note. And as you read, you should underline the keywords and the question task, right? And the word suggest tells you that what must be true. So this indicates this is an inference question. So the question is actually asking what must be true about the remarkable characteristics of Chinese climbing mice, right? So now we'll move to the lines given here in the answer choices. So these are the lines for, so this is the text for lines given in option A. From time to time, a Hamburg dealer in animals sends me two breeds of common mice, which he calls Chinese climbing mice and Japanese dancing mice. So you need to ask yourself, do these lines help me answer the question? So in the question, in the previous question, like we have seen that the question is asking for the characteristics. So you need to ask yourself, do these lines indicate some characteristics of Chinese climbing mice? So when you read the text, you figure out that no characteristics are mentioned here of any type of mouse here, right? So you can straight away eliminate option A. Now we'll move to the next option. So we'll check option B, okay? Lines 10 to 13. So the text that you need to read here is, so that is also always given in the brackets. As you can see, you have to start reading from it is till mice. It is true that the first are distinguished only by their different colors from their climbing accomplishments are not greater than those of the other mice. Now here in this sentence, we have used a word first and then we have like other. So you need to figure out what does first refer to and what does other refer to, right? So luckily we have the text here, simple text here. So we can read the previous sentence to figure out which mice are referred to as the first mice here, right? So in the previous sentence, you can see we have the sentence that he says, which he calls Chinese climbing mice and Japanese dancing mice. So the word first here refers to Chinese climbing mice. So this information is about Chinese climbing mice, that these mice are distinguished only by their different colors. So do these lines help me match the information in these lines with any of the answer choices here? Because lines here are talking about colors and this is mentioned here. So probably we can connect B with D. Now we'll read the text in the next lines. So lines 27 to 31. But what distinguishes them most is their innate habit of running around, describing greater or smaller circles, or more frequently whirling around on the same spot with incredible rapidity. Now, do these lines match any of the answer choices here? So we are talking about, so these lines are talking about like their innate habit of running around, describing greater or smaller circles. So that means, and also the like frequently whirling around on the same spot. So that means these lines are talking about some rhythmic movements, right? So we can connect C with C. And option D, it says Zoth, who measured the strength of the dancer in comparison with that of the common mouse, found that it can hold up only about 2.8 times its own weight, whereas the common white mouse can hold up 4.4 times its weight. So if you are reading carefully with the focus of the question in mind, then you will realize that this sentence is about the dancer, that is the dancing mouse. And the question is about Chinese climbing mouse. And the information here relates to some strength, right? So we can match B with B if you're not reading carefully. And if you're reading carefully, you know that these lines are giving information about the dancing mice. And the question is about the climbing mice. Now, at this particular point, you are down to two options because you were able to match, you were able to have two pairs, right? So as we discussed here, that you need to figure out if some, if there is a reference to something already mentioned in the passage text, right? So in the first one, we know that option B, the lines in option B are talking about Chinese climbing mice. So in these lines, in the lines of option C, you need to figure out that this pronoun them refers to what, right? For this, you need to refer to the passage text, and unfortunately, we could not incorporate the entire passage in the slide. So, so for your reference, I'm just telling you that here them refers to the Japanese mice. So when you figure out by reading the previous sentence that this information is about Japanese dancing mice, then you can straight away eliminate option C as well. So you are down to only one option, the one pair. So that makes the correct answer for question number 2 as B and the correct answer for question number 3 as B. So this is how we work the paired sets, right? Any questions, any doubts? Okay, so before we move ahead, so let's look at the learnings derived from this. So one learning is that in best evidence answers, you have to use the text given in the line references only. You don't have to read anything extra. And these are the two things that you have to keep in mind when you are working the question, right? So with this strategy, like if you ask yourself, can you find any connections between the lines in the best evidence question and the answer choices and the answers in the first question, you may end up with multiple pairs, right? So that will again take more time. So this strategy is the best strategy that I recommend my students. So read with the focus of the question in mind. So you can straight away eliminate the answer choices that do not address the question asked, right? So from these 3 questions, I have tried my best to, incorporate the best learnings and what should be kept in mind. Yeah.
I think you have well explained with the questions, examples. It gives a better idea and they can make a connection to the steps and strategies you are.
Yeah. So yes, so they have to keep these certain steps in mind. So first they have to work the question, then they have to work the passage, and then they have to work the answer choices. Yeah. So this is what they have to keep in mind.
Can we close with the final tips for this reading section of SAT?
Yeah, sure. So I have like a few tips mentioned here. So you must take the help of your 4 best buddies on SAT reading. This is what I say. So the passage introduction, the line references in the questions and in the answer choices, chronology and keywords. So these are something that are really going to help you on your SAT reading. Fine. So passage introduction will help you decide whether you should do this passage now or not, because through passage introduction only, you will figure out whether the question, whether the passage is a science passage or a literature passage or a history passage. So if you're not comfortable with one type of passage, you may want to do it later. So the passage introduction will help you decide whether you should do this passage now or later, right? Then line references will guide you where to look for the answer in the passage text. Chronology will help you in case you don't have any line reference in a specific question, then you can take the help of line reference given in the previous question and the next question to figure out where you can find the answer to this question. And of course, keywords in the question statement will tell you what to look for in the passage text when you are looking for the answers, right? And another thing to note is that you should decide the order, right? So based on your strengths and weaknesses, you need to decide in which order you should attempt the passages. It's not it's not necessary that you should answer the questions, answer the passages in the order they are presented to you in the test, right? So you can be selective. Similarly, you can be selective with the questions, right? So suppose I'm not comfortable with, say, main idea question or primary purpose question, I may want to skip that question. So even if I'm skipping a question, I'm deciding not to do it now, or maybe I'm not deciding to answer it at all, like to work that question at all. So I'll just mark anything and I'll move to the next question, right? Then, as we have discussed that you have seen through these examples, that it is really crucial to understand what exactly the question is asking you to do. Because if you do not understand the question, then you will not be able to answer the question correctly, right? And it is always good to underline or bracket relevant information, label the question number as well. So as you have seen in the passage, so I have always marked this kind of window, right? And it's always good to label the question number so that in case you want to rework a question, you don't have to decide again where to find the answer for this particular question, right? And another thing to keep in mind is you need to trust the passage. Answers are there, right? So the correct answer is always available in the passage. You don't have to add any information from your side to pick the correct answer, right? And important that you should use elimination to get to the correct answer and show the elimination on the paper, right? So as you can see, I have marked like cross, I have put a tick, or I have circled the correct answer. So that way you should mark, right? By marking on the paper, you are keeping your mind free, right? Otherwise, you'll keep a lot of information in your mind when you are comparing the answer choices, right? And another important point is you have to match ideas, not the words. Otherwise, you will fall for the trap answer, right? So, Kavita ji, any other question you have regarding the tips? So these are the reading tips that a student must keep in mind. Then we have a few more tips for SAT in general. There's no negative marking on SAT, so you should not leave any question unanswered. So even if you decide or you don't have time to, answer all the questions, you should mark something. So you should decide that which alphabet you would fill for all the unworked questions, right? So you can decide and fill the bubbles with those answers. And you should take the test in 2 passes. Do the easy questions first, right? And whichever questions you feel you tend to take more time to answer those questions, you can do those questions later. Very important to understand the question and read the answer choices carefully so that you can get rid of the partial answers, right? And most importantly, practice timed full length test before your actual SAT. And it is good if you can simulate your FLT. So that means you should take your test in the morning, preferably between 8 a.m. and 12 noon, because this is the time when you will be actually writing your SAT, fine? And use breaks wisely, because in the test center, you will not be allowed to sit in the classroom during the breaks. So use these breaks wisely so that you can feel fresh when you start with the new section, right? And between the 2 mock tests, it is important that you analyze your test and revise concepts where you have gone wrong in the previous mock test. So these are certain things which are important. And most importantly, you must fill bubbles correctly, because if you're not filling bubbles correctly, even if you have marked the correct answer on the bubble sheet, your answer will be considered wrong. So this has happened with one of my students. So he was a student staying in Dubai. So he used to, smudge. Well, he was a lefty. So when he was filling the bubbles, uska jo bubble ka pencil ka mark hai, that used to go to the other bubbles as well, right? And you won't believe that student was consistently, like after attending the classes, he was consistently getting 1600 on 1600 in his mocks. And in his actual test, he got only 1260. And the reason was he was not filling the bubbles correctly. So despite reminding him that you have to fill bubbles correctly, he realized it later when he received the result. And in his second attempt, again, he ended up with 1590. So somehow he's like lost 10 points somewhere. But yeah, he was able to get a higher score because he was able to improve on his habit of not filling the bubbles correctly.
Thank you so much, Anusheel. We extended the session.
Oh, sorry.
It was so, so many important things were discussed, small things which we know.
Yeah, they were really crucial. Yeah.
That we lose on the marking also because of those reasons.
Yeah.
We have received one question from Rupa on our YouTube live. She's asking, how does one identify one's strength and weakness in the reading section?
Okay, Rupa ji, actually what happens is when you take the mock tests, you will realize that what kind of questions you are getting correct, or on which type of passages you are getting most of the questions correct, right? So that is how you need to decide what are your strength areas and what are your weaker areas. So it all depends on, the practice, the kind of practice you are putting in, right? And to figure out that on which areas you are going wrong, you can always you can start maintaining an error log, right? So in the error log, you need to mention, okay, so I'll just give you the idea how to maintain an error log. So in the error log, you are writing the kind of question that you are getting wrong. So in the error log, you will only have the information about the questions that you have got wrong, not about the correct questions, right? So you can have various columns as per your convenience. So what I generally say is you have to write the question type. So if you are maintaining the same error log for, like, ideally you should have like for different sections, you should maintain different error logs. So suppose this is for reading. So the first column will be, say, question type. So question type is like specific or general, or to be more, you can be specific, like it's a vocab and context question or a paired set or something like that. And what went wrong, right? So what mistake made? So what mistake did you make? So you will realize it. Once you analyze your test, you will realize that, okay, I have made this mistake. Maybe the question, you did not read the question carefully, or maybe you did not read the passage text carefully, or you did not read the answer choice carefully, right? So whatever mistake you have made, you have to mention here, right? And from this, what learning can you derive? So the learning derived in that case would be to read carefully, right? So the learning derived will help you figure out what you should do to avoid such mistakes so that those mistakes are not repeated. And when you write down your mistakes, then the chances are that you will stop repeating such mistakes in your future, right? So this error log will really help you to know your strength areas and your weaker areas. So if you're getting all, say, vocab and context questions correct, so you won't have a mention of vocab and context question here. So that indicates that's your stronger area, right? You can have another column here, like what kind of passage it was, so that you can figure out that what kind of passages, in what kind of passages you're getting most of the questions correct, and in which passages you're getting more questions wrong, right? So that way, you can decide on like the order of the questions and the order of passages to attempt as well.
It's a wonderful, wonderful way, because we tell students who are distracted to maintain a distraction log. And even I had a student who was, having a issue with the kind of difficulty in applying, solving the questions. And she used to get distracted while solving the question. So I told her, maintain exactly the same thing. If you're not able to do, write it over there. Every time you write it, you will, put extra efforts to solve first.
Yes.
You have to see that is reducing.
Yeah. And this needs to be done when a student is, analyzing the test himself or herself.
Wonderful tip.
Yeah.
And you should be doing it, because this will help you to analyze your strength, to understand which passages, what kind of passages you are normally having a difficulty in understanding and getting the answers right.
Yeah.
In more practice, that means it's not a weakness, it's a challenge, and you have to work on it little more. You have to put extra efforts for that. So I believe we are done for today. And in case you have any questions, please write it in the comment box. Please like and subscribe it, because we are putting so much of efforts, getting the experts, mentors to help you achieve more, to achieve success. And this is just a one step we have gone for the SAT preparation. And Anusheel, thank you so much. We have just discussed the one section of it, that is the reading section. And tomorrow we'll be back with the section.
Tomorrow we'll be discussing writing and language section, because that's the second section of the test. So we'll be discussing writing and language section tomorrow. And on Sunday, we'll be discussing on maths.
Yes. And same time, it will start at sharp at 6.
Yes.
And in case you have any questions, you can always keep your questions or write it on the comment box. We'll get back to you. We'll
So I really hope the session was useful for the students who are like aspiring students for the May SAT, and the students who are planning to write in August, their SAT in August, right? So believe me, stick to these pointers and you'll do wonders. If other students can do, then you can do as well. This is what I believe.
Yes, definitely. We at the Career Beacon believe in optimizing or reaching your full potential.
Yes.
Edu Global Prep helps you to achieve that. And these are the expert tips. Do think about it, give some thought, have some structured learning patterns, be consistent, and follow the tips ma'am has mentioned to you. And nobody can stop you from even achieving 1600 out of 1600.
Thank you so much. All the best, everyone. And I hope to see you tomorrow as well in the writing and language section. Right? Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Anusheel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kavita ji.